All right.
We're recording. Yep.
All right. Welcome to the Dallas-Fort Worth Site Reliability Engineering Meetup group. This is my first time leading this. Please be gentle. Essentially, we're a group of people who want to help bring SRE to the world. I know I use it in my business. Randy's, organization uses it. We use a lot of the principles from Google as well as other sources where appropriate, because it's not a one-size-fits-all philosophy. We got a Slack, got the meetup group. There's a GitHub organization. Feel free to join it. Throw links up. There's links on the reliabilityengineering.io site. I've also, if you want to not type as much, got DFW SRE.org pointing at the same thing. So that's where we are right now.
Yep.
Today, we're going to have a little talk about a Joel test for SRE. If you don't know,
Hey, Kevin. So I thought before we jump into that, is we have a couple of new folks.
oh, sure.
So this is Home Depot. We're not selling anything here, of course, but we're hosting. Spark Post also, pays for pizza and helps organize and lead the meetup as well. So he and I are kind of leading the effort. Matt started it, and he's kind of moved on to other company in another state. So we're going to do our best to kind of keep this going here. Like I said, I'm Randy Lee. I'm practicing staff engineer here at Home Depot. And we have implemented SRE and are very passionate, very strong in implementing it. We're never going to be perfect, but the meetup dinner that we had a while back with Google and all the local meetup groups, the Google, he was a GDG developer, trying to think of the name. Anyway, he said this was the only city of everywhere that he's gone to meet with local meetup groups that have had an SRE chapter, an SRE meetup group. So obviously there's local DevOps, Java, you name the technology and area of focus, but this was the only SRE focused. So I think I just looked, we're at 124 members now. Obviously it's not a representative. Last month was the biggest group. I want to say we had about 20. Does that sound right?
I think it was a little over 20.
A little over 20?
But
Yeah.
Yeah, it was our largest meetup that I've been to, certainly.
Yeah. So, I think you can get into it, but hopefully we can be very open and, have good conversations. That's the main reason we're here. We can look at different topics and things down the road. So,
Yeah, definitely. This talk, ideally, it's going to be a discussion roundtable type thing. It's only 9 slides. I think it's going to go pretty quick, as far as the slides go, at least. And this was built as a collaborative effort. I came up with a short list of questions, bounced it off some of my coworkers at Spark Post, and bounced it off some of you guys in the Slack channel. Lots of great feedback. So, for those who don't know, the Joel test, Joel Spolsky, the guy who started Stack Overflow and has done a few other things, he's created a test about 19 years ago it's like 12 questions about software development. That's where he was focused. So it helps to determine the level of maturity of a software development organization. I thought, why don't we have something like that for SRE, for principles like, blameless postmortems, how do they handle on-call rotation, error budgeting, that kind of thing. So what's following is what I think a Joel test for SRE should look like. And I totally expect that everybody's going to have a different opinion on that, and I highly encourage you to have a different opinion on that. Not just from the kind of organization that you want to work in or want to build, but what's right for you. You may be the kind of person who wants to start somewhere that they don't have anything right, and you want to help build them into it. Or it may be you're the kind of person who wants to have an organization that's already got a good process, they're already doing all the right things, and you just want to be able to jump in and go. So this hopefully will help you find what you're looking for in an organization. First question I had, do you have an on-call rotation? My last job, there wasn't really an on-call rotation. It was kind of an informal thing that evolved into, oh yeah, let's just have the ops team do everything. I basically was a 24/7, 365 pager catcher for 2.5 years in that situation. It kind of changes the way you look at life when you're doing that. It's nice to be able to pass it off at least occasionally. In my current organization, SparkPost, not only do they have an on-call rotation, the development teams who are in charge of services have their own on-call rotation to, rotate through the people who are managing the service, whatever that service might be. And they're able to pull people in. That's another important thing. Some places I've heard, if you're on call, you're expected to catch and do everything. The dev team or whoever, they don't want to be bothered, which can make solving a problem painful. So ideally, I believe an organization should have a rotation. They should have the engineer be empowered to pull in whoever or whatever they need to solve the problem. Another line of thought on that is, how do they compensate? Like my current organization, you work 1 week as a secondary on-call, like you're the fallback if the main guy's indisposed for whatever reason, and then you are the primary on-call for a week. So it's like a 2-week deal. You kind of ease into it, then you're off. And for that, we offer 1 full day of compensation time. So, like I was on call last week, I'm taking my comp day this Friday, so I got a 3-day weekend out of it. Other places I've heard about will have stuff like on-call bonuses or perks or something. I mean, it's kind of whatever you would want out of that. Anybody else got any thoughts on call?
So you get comp off even if you get 0 calls while you're on call. Is that a standard practice?
I don't know how standard it is industry-wide. In my organization, yeah, we do. Because we're taking that 2-week window, we basically are paid 4 hours of comp time per week that we're in the line of fire as far as catching pages goes. When the Spectre meltdown thing hit, I guess that was December 17, when Amazon first started rebooting everything to catch the patches. This is slightly before I started there, but everybody was on deck. And after that situation settled down, they started, letting people take off days, rotating through it so everybody got a break. In a situation where there's not much going on, just because you still have to be at that higher level of alertness. When I'm on call, I don't go to movies or rock concerts or whatever. I keep myself where I'm able to respond because I have the service level agreement of 10 minutes. I must, at least acknowledge the page within 10 minutes.
Yeah, I think it's changed in general. So I can say for my career, at least, I've been in companies where even if you got paged and you spent an hour in the middle of the night, you were still expected to be at the office at 8 or whatever in the morning. That's changed, right? Where you even at that job, 2 or 3 jobs back, you would get comp time. Here we do the comp that you said, full day, even if you're not on, or receiving any pages, like you said, it's just that mental state of, hey, yeah, there's just a 1 hour event that my kid has, but you're like, no, I better not, right? Because you may have something come up. So it's just switching your life around in order to compensate the company to be able to get that mean time to resolution that they expect. You get that time back, right? So I think in general the industry has changed and modernized a little bit when it comes to on call that I've seen. I can't speak for all companies, but like I said, you do it, and I know a lot of companies, we've done it here for a while as well.
Any other thoughts?
So I had just so not just on call, but so something that we do here, an interrupt. So I don't, are you guys familiar with the interrupt person? So basically, from a support standpoint, our developers do it as well. So basically, for a week or month or whatever, you may be in a band or an interrupt. So basically, you don't take on any kind of project work. So it's the same kind of thing, but it's business hour driven, right? So basically, like for us, we do, like I said, the secondary and the primary may change just because sometimes it gets to be too much, and then you're on call for 2 weeks basically. During the day, you're not carrying a pager at night, but you just get that fatigue. But the interrupt person is somebody that's kind of watching the channel or watching something, taking those issues, working on that. So if something does come up, then the primary can work on production and focus on that, and they're not having to make a decision about, hey, should I focus on this issue over here in non-production, or should I I just got to page for production, not having to make that decision. So an interrupt person, and we get compensation for that as well because you roll into primary and then you get the day off. So that's something else that we do, and I've seen other companies do as well on kind of the support ops as well as the development side. Because like you said, hey, if I need to pull somebody in, I need to get immediate action, right? If you're focused on the project work, then you're hesitant to give me your full undivided attention, right? So they often will have bands or interrupt person on the other side as well.
I'd say Spark Post, our dev teams work more like that as far as the person who's on support or on call. They also are off project work, handling any interrupt situations that happen during the day. For the SRE organization, the interrupt people are on a different band than the on-call, but they're not expected to do anything after hours. They're just off project work for their week, and then they're back the next week. It's a different way to look at it.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts before I move on?
We use PagerDuty. So
Yeah.
It's where we have a team of people.
Yeah.
Like, so if somebody doesn't respond, everybody is given an instrument by the company. So if somebody doesn't respond within a time, the call is automatically
Escalated.
So it ensures that somebody answers the call, and they can pull in anybody they want to,
Yeah.
to fix the issue.
Yeah, we use Opsgenie for the same kind of thing. The primary gets the first page. If they don't respond in 10 minutes, the secondary gets it. If they don't respond in 10 minutes, then everybody gets it.
But there are team shifts, like so half the team works
Yeah.
on a shift, the team also rolls.
We use PagerDuty as well. It works very well for us.
We tried Big Crops because
Big Drops? Oh yeah. Yeah, I talked to them last year at SRE Con, and it seemed like it was a good solution, but we already were using PagerDuty and happy with them. So.
Splunk has acquired Big Crops now.
Oh, is that right? It's interesting. Cool.
So, at what time does an on-call engineer in your organization, it has a big impact? Let's say it's going to impact your revenue, or what we have is a technology operation center. When applications are classified according to different metal classification or different tiers. So if an app is in the top tier that is affected, and he or she gets paged, he or she is to contact top or operational command center and apprise them of the situation. And then we have a quarterback at that time, depending upon the business impact,
Right.
that pulls in all the different groups across the
So
organization.
an incident manager, basically.
Yeah, basically an incident manager, but he or she has that authority. He or she becomes like a CIO at that time.
Right, that's right. Yeah, we have that. Yeah. So for us, and I support mostly .com, it's very much the same way where depending on, like I said, the tier, the revenue impact will determine if it needs to be a sub 1 or sub 2. Those will go into creating an official company incident, and then an incident manager is assigned, and then like I said, they act as the quarterback, and then we can work with them to pull in whatever teams, vendors, whatever is needed. I think like you had mentioned, about, hey, are we empowered? And at that point, whoever joins, it doesn't matter if it's a CIO, they have the command to pull in and assess the situation and handle things that way. Yeah.
So what's the SRE for that?
It depends, right? So you mean as far as when an incident is created?
Right.
It depends on so basically if we, if they're starting to get tickets created, then we'll typically engage the incident team, right? Or they may reach out to us if they
For
find
sub
something.
sub one.
A sub 1 or sub 2. Pretty much sub 1, side impact, can't check out, those kind of impacts, right?
So you guys have a more formalized incident response team.
That's right. It's more enterprise, where most time we handle things ourselves within our site. Hey, some little widget, data issue, whatever. We'll typically take care of that ourselves. We have PagerDuty. We'll track our own incidents using the company tool. But when it's an impact you can't check out, the site's not loading at all, anything major on the site, it's a sub 1. Then we have an incident commander come in, and then we have full authority to bring in whatever teams, and then they come in and we determine we don't need them anymore, and they can go away and so forth. But they're the acting incident manager.
I think your question is more on SLA to respond and
Yeah,
restore.
yeah,
Right?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. For us, it depends on what the tier is, right? So sub 1, it's basically we can't check out. But you're asking, how long does it take
Yes,
to
how
create
long?
these? We get paged immediately, right? So we got all kinds of different systems. I guess I don't think I'm answering your question. What you're looking for?
No, how long it will take to recover? I mean, for
That's
one
all
of the
the
issues.
Well, it depends.
Yeah, it just depends on the issue.
I think maybe let me try to rephrase this question better. At the end of the month, right? How do you measure?
How do you measure?
Measure
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
100 incidents,
Gotcha.
mean time to restore and mean time to respond.
Yeah,
Do
yeah.
you measure
So that's
it?
kind of getting into SLOs and SLIs, right?
Correct.
Service level indicator and objective, right? So it goes back to what you were mentioning about the tier level, right? Hey, is this I can't check out, or maybe some would just not working, right? Or this service is revenue impacting. It's a tier 1, right? And it has to be up this amount of time. So we measure the availability of that service in the aggregate of the site, right? As well as the site, does the site load, right? So we have different measurements in those, and we track all those, and we have different SLOs on the different functionality of the site.
But some incidents, the system's back up, so you call it done, but it may leave behind technical issues that need to be resolved.
Right.
Add
Yeah.
stuff to the backlog or whatever.
Yeah. Then we'll perform the blameless postmortem. We'll determine action items. No repeat
Process-wise,
claims.
but in terms of counting it done at the end of the month, is it when the site's back up?
The availability. Like I said, we don't.
Availability.
Yeah. We used to long ago. The traditional industry standard was, how long is the site up, right? Or say, for 15 minutes, only 50% of the users were impacted, placing an order. Then we do that calculation and then add that up. That was kind of the
Come up
traditional
with
method.
something that maps into your SLO.
Right, and then we were all graded in our reviews of did we meet SLO overall of the availability, downtime, outage time, and all those things. But
Got it.
now we've moved into more of the SRE model, like I said, of service level objectives of the services themselves and the order count and those kind of things.
And the fact that an incident leaves debris behind to be cleaned up doesn't keep the incident open. It just adds.
Well, the incident,
Adds
yeah,
to the
once
backlog.
service is restored, the incident's closed, but then we'll come back behind that, separate from the formal company incident, and create our own blameless postmortem, right, with action items, no repeat plans, and those kind of things. We
Are
track
you
that
agile?
separately.
Are you agile?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
yeah, we were, but we've kind of moved away from that, but we're still kind of a hybrid kind of deal.
Okay.
What we do is once the incident
What's
is
that?
Is it more lean?
restored or
More lean,
recovered,
yeah.
right? We create a problem ticket so that any follow-up task can be completed using a problem management.
And that's why I was asking about agile. If it turns into a story in the
Yeah.
backlog, it gets groomed into.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
we
could-
use pivotal trackers, and we flow through the process there.
Okay.
In my org, we use Jira and we create what's called an RCA, corrective action record. And we use like the 5 whys to drill down as to the root cause. And then we take our steps. Ideally, any corrective actions should be, worked into the quarterly flow or whatever. I mean, depending on how urgent the issue is, if it's something we think is going to repeat in a matter of hours or days, then there's
Gives it a higher priority.
Yeah.
Backlog with the current sprint.
Yeah, I think one of the slides kind of touches on this theme of, are you empowered as a reliability engineer to stop any changes, right? That's one of the guiding principles is you should be empowered to be held as a professional to say, hey, no, you've eaten up your area budget or your percent of whatever it is, right? Percent of uptime, percent of errors, whatever. We need to stop future delivery until we address whatever it is.
Shift the focus.
Shift the focus. That's right. A mature organization. And I think the way you've got the slides, it's almost like you're interviewing the company, right?
Yeah, that's kind of what the whole thing. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what the Joel test was about. Was interviewing the company to figure out how mature their development processes are. So this is interviewing the company to figure out how their reliability engineering works.
What their culture is and their processes, and like I said, whether or not you want to step in at whatever level that they're at or not.
Yeah. I think we're ready for this one's, I don't think, going to be as big. Do the developers participate in supporting or managing the service? Ideally, that's a yes, in my opinion. They should, I mean, they're not going to be infrastructure gods by any means, but they should know at least the basics around what they're shipping. And the follow-up to that is the SRE organization, do they embed within the development organization at all? In my current situation, each development team has an SRE who embeds with them, who understands what they're doing, why they're doing it, and helps champion their needs to the larger organization as far as infrastructure, what they need to be more reliable, etc. Basically help them get to where they need to be.
I agree as well. Or some hybrid approach of that. But you definitely need dev ownership in other areas as well. So having that relationship and that integration helps to lead into other areas, right? Empowering them and asking them to help set all those SLAs and SLOs that you mentioned, because they ultimately show that them and the product manager of the business should own those. It's not us. We're just helping to enforce it, provide the data, the monitoring to show them, and then it's a data decision, right? It's not an emotional decision. It's you've breached it, you agreed that you wouldn't, now you need to pay the price and stop future delivery, address this, and you can go back.
Decisions based on fact, essentially. Other thoughts on this one before I move on?
Anybody seen this work? No?
Well, I guess I'll sort of participate's kind of a big word. What do you mean participate in?
Well, ideally, somebody ideally, the development organization, they're asking for resources to do something, or they want to, stand up a new service. They should at least be aware of what infrastructure is supporting their service, whether it's Kubernetes or VMs or maybe it's just a bunch of S3 buckets. They should be aware of what's backing their service and know a little about it. They don't need to be experts in it, but they ought to know enough so that they're optimizing for their infrastructure
in their development activity. Okay.
So actually, the Google model is that the development team owns the service all the way through production. If they want somebody to take the pager, then they have to go through a certain criteria and list of, do you have the right documentation, do you have the right integration into alerting, monitoring, all those things. Then you can hand it over, and then there's a shared responsibility of developers still carrying a pager to a point, but obviously they still have to respond. And does it meet, the tier level like we talked about earlier, right? What's the criticality if this goes down? What's the impact to the company?
So you're saying Google has it clear through, including production?
That's right. So if you want to go stand up some small little service or whatever, you're empowered to go and integrate with the Google tools and technologies and whatever to go build that out. If you want somebody else to support it, it gets to a certain point. Then you reach out to the SRE team and go, hey, I want you guys to take this. You go through the formal list and vetting process, and you meet your criteria.
Then you can hand it off. And is that typically what's going to happen then? Is developers are going to try to meet those criteria so that it's
because they don't want to pay the paper, right? It's gotten to the point where it's proven that it makes money. It's at a certain volume, whatever the access, those where those meet, right?
Yeah.
Then it's like, okay, now we need to turn this over. This can't go down. It can't have impact, whatever. We need to turn this over, right?
It's now a maintained product, not beta or
That's right.
whatever.
So as far as participation, we talked about the one where they should own those numbers, right? That's how we do it, and that's how Google typically advocates that companies say, hey, you've got your operations staff, right? That could be on-prem, that could be cloud, whatever, right? They're the knowledge experts in the operating system, load balancer, networking, all those things to run services at scale, right? And then you've got the developers that are creating the software, the features, the APIs, whatever, right? And then you got the product owners that are going out. They know what they think they know what the customer needs, right? And so we advocate that the product owner and the delivery owner of the feature should own those, right? We provide input and guidance to say, hey, we think your latency should be at this, or this API, it should always respond to this, error rate should be no more than this percentage, whatever those key metrics are, but they should own it, right? And we provide the infrastructure to provide them a nice, clear dashboard. We've done that here. They should own those numbers, and we meet regularly to go over those. To go, hey, are these numbers still important to you? Yeah. And, how long does it take to load the page, or whatever it is, right? Whatever is important, service level indicator, and then they become objectives of, hey, it shouldn't go above or below this. They should own that, and maybe they should carry the pager, right? Or agree to respond to tier 1 service within 10 minutes. Otherwise, you're providing a detriment to me. It's your air budget at the end of the day. I don't care, right? I try to do my best effort to get this service restored. Your team didn't respond, so therefore it's your air budget. You agree, right? So
burn your air budget.
You can burn your air budget however you want.
But
right?
once it's burned, you got to quit delivering.
Right. But if you don't have that relationship and that participation, then it makes it a lot harder.
So your organization's advisory up to the point where the criteria for handoff, to get them to that point so that
More
they
or
can
less, yeah.
free them up to go engage in.
They can go as fast as they want. Right?
As far as the development itself happens on hardened AMIs, which is got built-in tools like the SRE monitoring and everything, and the development happens through that. And the highly architecture for microservices is very handy. So we have to manage the lift and shift applications and cloud native applications are built. So by default, they bring in the strength of SRE.
In general, that's how most people tend to think about it, but we can probably put it up on the site. There was a talk at the SRE conference last year. Dave, he is the director of CRE, so Customer Reliability Engineering. So within Google, they have a team of former SREs that they basically work with clients. Home Depot is one of them to help create these types of SRE principles. But part of that was, hey, enterprise loves us too. It's not just people looking to adopt and migrate and lift and shift their workloads into the cloud, but it's also on-prem, right? If you put a lot of these processes in place, then it makes it very easy for the incident managers and the executive leaders to go, hey, yeah, I like this because it puts boundaries and puts nice bows around things to make it easier to manage and track at the end of the day, just as much as moving into the cloud.
And we have the TVs with all the dashboards.
Yeah, you see, yeah, look, there's one right there. That's all of our mobile, all of our apps that you download, Android and iOS. That's all the traffic for the app, the native app. And we have dashboards like that all around. That's just for the .com related stuff.
This covers both infrastructure as well as application. This
I'm
covers both infrastructure as well as.
So this is more just traffic, so the app itself, yeah. But we do have dashboards that show order count and how volume of traffic and those kind of things are coming in for the various microservices that comprise the .com.
We have a golden SRE dashboard with 4 golden signals
Okay.
for different products.
Yeah. At the end of the day, yeah, as much as you can simplify and have trust in that, one pane of glass and make it easier, the green and red, right? Sure. Sure. Cool. That's some good discussions.
That's good.
So, participation, yeah. Obviously, it's key, all around to involve your partners. If you don't have that, then it makes life very difficult, right?
Yeah, you still basically got the wall between ops and development that you're trying to break down, and everybody's throwing stuff over at each other.
Well, part of the reason I looked at the word is some of it depends on the organization you're in. I was in a company where they had over 2,000 developers, and so there was a lot of specialization in areas that took them to distant parts of the planet for, systems engineering lived in one town and supported another. So some of it depends on the organization you're in, but I wondered if there was something more empirical in there that said participate, whatever your organization you're in has these elements to it, in terms of what the Joel test would look like for participation of developers in supporting and managing services. Now, I think you pretty much outlined
Yeah, so
that. I just, kind of turn it into a list of bullets, and then it's a testable thing.
yeah, it's kind of your litmus
Litany,
test going
it's a litany.
going in of, hey, how do you treat the relationship between operations, DevOps, SRE, whatever you call them at the end of the day, and your future delivery folks.
And if you take the test and hold it over an organization and you can't check certain of the boxes, those should be items on that list that you want to drive towards. I
Right.
presume that's the value of
Yeah,
the Joel test. Right?
yeah, it's basically measuring the maturity of an organization. On the original test, it was real basic stuff like, do you have source control
Right.
for your code? Which I would think by now, 20 years on, everybody
Should have.
should have it. I would be very surprised if you find an organization that's got more than one person that doesn't.
So it becomes a list of best practice inventory.
Yeah.
Okay.
What is this dashboard built on? Is it a New Relic or?
No, it's not New Relic. We do use New Relic as well, but I forget what this is built on. It's something like Grafana based.
Okay.
I don't think we pay for that one. It's some kind of framework that's
Oh,
really easy
that's
to
not
use.
nice.
Prometheus.
Yeah, one of those.
We talked about this a little bit already, but our error budget's set for your services. SLIs and SLOs are really important for not, the SLI is for measuring what you're doing, and the objectives for determining how well you're doing it.
Whether you've met the SLA.
Yeah. A lot of it's simple stuff like, do you have clear objectives? My last company, they just said, oh, 3 nines. 3 nines for what? So.
Yeah, that's probably a good, off the bat type of question. Excuse me. What are your SLOs and what do you measure them on? If they say, oh, wait, or when you're asking a customer, what availability you want, 5 nines or always up 100%. It's like, okay, you're not mature enough to understand what you're saying, right? Because it's almost impossible to achieve 100% or 5 nines availability. You can't.
Even
You throw enough
3 nines
people
can be
and
pretty
money.
difficult, yeah.
But you always got to rely on somebody else, right? Somebody else's hardware, cloud, whatever, and it's almost impossible to achieve those numbers, right?
It's silly to have an objective that's higher than what's underneath you. Is the short way to say that.
Can you explain the error budget part? Even though I'm an SRE, but still I just would like to.
Well, an error budget, say you have a service level objective of 3 nines for, incoming requests, say your auth service. Your error budget is how much you can be down
In time.
in time. Say it's time or request. In my company, some things are measured by time, others are measured by requests serviced. How many requests you serviced, how many you could not, how many you turned to 500 or something.
I see.
And how is it measured? Like, okay, you have these. How is it measured? Like, you log it and.
It's measured logs, like for the example I just gave, it would be like your web server logs like Nginx or your load balancer if you're using ELD. For like the request angle, we're measuring total request and then we're taking the percentages.
You can put that on the dashboard also. Put
Yeah.
the dashboard.
So, it's not a sell for Google, but I think I mentioned earlier that maturity-wise, Google wasn't there years back when we first started. They're getting closer with StackDriver. That's their monitoring tool. And we use that exclusively. On-prem, we use Splunk, right? It's fairly common. So they're integrating in just now. We're actually in kind of an alpha moving towards beta. So basically, it's a way for us to kind of capture, hey, we set what that availability or error rate percentage, whatever it is. They can track that and gives you a rolling 30-day view. So kind of 30 days is kind of general average, how did we meet this month? You meet with your partner, right, the development owner, product manager, whoever, and say, hey, look, you agreed that you wanted to have your service up and always respond within this latency, 500 milliseconds, whatever it is, right? For the entire month, you dipped here and here, you were okay, or you dipped enough that overall you dropped down. Typically, it's measured in amount of time, like you were down or unavailable or whatever. You didn't meet that. That's you're burning into your air budget, right? So if you're looking at a week or typically it's a month.
What is the tool again?
So StackDriver, it's a tool. It's monitoring, so there's dashboards and all those things. We feed all of our logs from our applications into those, and then all the Google resources themselves, like I said, load balancer, VMs, memory, CPU, and all those things. But as far as what transparent logging and SLOs that we share across executive leadership, across development, all the way through, it's transparent. We built our own internal tool that we use now that we kind of track that, but we weren't quite there as far as building out something that kind of gave you that rolling 30-day view, right? So you can kind of project out, hey, if we keep going this way, next week you're going to be out of air budget, and I'm going to ask you to stop your feature delivery, right? That's really what you want, right? A forecast kind of tool.
And the discipline within the organization for the development team to say, okay, we'll stop developing new features and focus
Yeah,
on this.
if you that's the ideal relationship, right? If you have that, then they know, hey, I'm going too fast, I'm introducing too much instability, I'm going to cause myself a problem, I need to slow down, work on those processes, whether, be regression, whatever it is.
Tell the
achieve it.
product owners no. See, that
And
was
tell the
always
product
tricky
owners,
part.
oh, hey, I need to allocate 20% of time, and we'll do that too. We'll come in as SREs and say, hey, we're fine right now. However, doing destructive testing in non-production or in production, I found that if A happens and then B and then C, then we're going to have problems. They're going to go, oh, well, that's never going to happen. And then you go, yeah, it will happen.
No, we
right?
make it happen every month.
We can go and reproduce it. It will be an issue, right? Yeah, Google will have a regional issue, right? And we'll have to shift all our traffic over to another region, right? Everybody has problems. Microsoft, Amazon, whoever, right? But if you have the destructive discipline built into your processes in regression testing, then you can prove, yeah, something will happen. I'm going to need time from developers to go figure out ways within the code. I can figure out ways within the infrastructure, a combination hybrid approach, so that if A happens and then B happens and then C happens, the customer never knows. We cache it, we shift traffic over here, whatever it is. But I'm going to need time to sit with a developer, figure those things out, put it in, and then iterate on that until we have that, and then put that into our destructive and testing life cycle, so we test on a regular basis.
And that also advances them to where they can hand it over to SREs to own the system. That's right, because you work out the tools that are required to support the product under development
Right.
while you're working all that stuff out. I love it.
That's the ideal. We're not quite there, but that's, at least we all know that's where we want to be.
If you're in the Amazon world, CloudWatch is the stack driver equivalent. It'd be very useful to have 5 nines on it, like you was talking about maturity of the organization. The objective should be meaningful.
Well, and I guess kind of at a deeper level too, more nuanced level, is that you may have something you can measure and think that it reflects the SLA, but in fact you just have found something that's easy to measure.
Exactly.
That you're not really looking at an objective that, I guess the indicator comes from the objective, which comes from the SLA. So you got to make sure you're measuring something that's realistic.
Right, and that's where, you're going to have traditional, whatever, uptime, outage time, whatever it is.
Right.
But it's whatever is important to that service or the aggregate of it or whatever, right? That's where the relationship comes in. Hey, how long should this page take to load?
Right.
How heavy should the page be? How many third-party tags? Or how long should this API take to respond? And
Right.
it should never take more than this. It should never time out, or if it does, it should time out at 1 second.
Right.
And you should never change it, right?
Well, and I guess too, the importance of it is that it gets tied into your monitoring and alerting system. That
Right.
you've got to alert on the right things, or else you undermine the value of the whole monitoring and alerting system.
They have muted many monitors.
Too many,
Less than 10
and you
seconds.
ignore them, right?
That's SRE. Less than 10 seconds to load the page.
10 seconds is a long time nowadays.
How is application performance monitoring handled in CloudWatch only does the infrastructure. When you want it in the application
You're talking about more tracing?
application is layers and tracing.
Yeah, Stackdriver, Google does
It
have
does.
tracing. We haven't really fully implemented it. On-prem, we use Dynatrace. But I think Amazon has, I forget what it's
Amazon
called.
doesn't have, like, we have to use Datadog. So Datadog has big applications, like
Datadog, yeah.
applications.
Yeah, my company uses Datadog. We do pump some things into CloudWatch. Depend, like some of our service teams, they have, like our business intelligence people, they use CloudWatch to profile things a little bit. It's kind of weird how they do it, but it works.
Some more geography based.
I think that's what it is.
You can also add custom metrics. You can push it into
we also use a tool called Zirconis to pull data from CloudWatch to aggregate it in ways that CloudWatch doesn't make easy.
What is the tool again?
Zirconis,
Zirconis, okay.
it's the company built around their database product. They've got, it's called IronDB, which is a graphing database and a time series database. And so it's really great for when you want to deal with great long stretches of time, because CloudWatch only goes back so far and automatically rolls up on things that you don't necessarily want to roll up. Ready for
And oh, sorry,
Go
one
ahead.
quick thing. So we can probably put. So last year I spent at Home Depot being an SRE advocate. So I've got a lot of links. If you guys are ever curious about all the stuff that we typically cover, I host internally on our own wiki, and I partner with other teams within Home Depot to help them build out SRE practices and so forth. But Google has some really good videos on SLI, SLO, and going into alphabet soup, right? Which one is which again? There's a lot of good videos from Google out there. Again,
Is it under the umbrella of the SRE book, or is
yeah,
it
it's in the excuse me, in the SRE realm, and there's podcasts as well. Some of the Google SREs, even within Google, there are a couple of good podcasts. Some links that I could share where they're like, hey, within Google, we practice and we adhere more to DevOps. And there's obviously an SRE org, and then there's a CRE, customer reliability, where they engage with customers and help them, implement SRE practices. But all the topics and all that, there's a lot of good podcasts. There's a lot of good videos that Google SREs have put together, and Google developers, and developer advocates. There's even a GCP podcast as well, where they talk about a lot of the technologies and these topics come up in there.
Nice.
Yeah, we've also got, I think we've got a link, I don't know if Matt had it, because I found several months ago, there's a GitHub page, I think it's called Awesome SRE, which is just a markdown list of all sorts of links for SRE topics.
Yeah.
There's lots of good stuff out there.
And then the Google books themselves, they have the SRE site reliability. There's a PDF of that, and there's also an audiobook of that as well.
And a
on the GitHub
workbook
site.
that goes with
And then, last year they published the
Audiobook,
workbook.
is it good? Like I have an audiobook. It was commission speaking.
Yeah. I know the one you're talking about. That's for the original site
Not
reliability.
workbook for okay for that.
Yeah, the workbook was published last year, and it's basically an implementation of and more customer, including there's a Home Depot chapter
Nice.
in there as well from a former senior director who helped kind of usher in the cloud migration as well as the SRE from DevOps. We call ourselves DevOps. We're web engineers, classic ops, but we've adopted a lot of the SRE as part of the journey. But yeah, that machine, it kind of works. And not great. I haven't seen much on the workbook, the new book.
I know they've added
There's a
it to their
PDF. I
landing
had the
page.
PDF for it, but I don't know about.
I haven't looked at it closely. I've got a copy I bought it from Google Play Books. I haven't gotten too deep into. But yeah, they've got the first book like completely published on their landing page from SRE.
And this audiobook that you mentioned is something different from that. Audiobook that you mentioned.
So the audiobook was, like you said, I think it's just a computer generated from the original Start Reliability. I would assume there's probably an official audiobook, from some studio that's somebody narrating and reading it. And the second one as well. I'm sure there is. I haven't seen it. I just took the free one. I had listened to it in my car, a few chapters I wanted to go over. But like I said, any of these topics, I'm sure I have or could easily find if you guys are curious. Good podcasts, good links to other companies, your Twitter. I was very surprised to see Microsoft and other companies at the SRECon last year. DevOps and SRE was very easily interchanged quite a bit in a lot of the classes there. So,
I've been hearing SRE Con's kind of taken over from Lisa as far as where a lot of the energy of all the Usenix operational people has moved.
DevOps is still pretty strong locally as far as a meetup group. Mike Rosato, I think his name is one of the big advocates
Capital One.
in the local market. But yeah, it's probably a topic that we need to have. What's DevOps versus SRE and what's the
I
distinction?
remember something like SRE implements DevOps, like
That's right.
Class SRE.
the class SRE
Yes.
implements DevOps.
That's list form and list form
That's right.
don't.
Yeah,
They're,
'cause-
they're YouTube talk.
Yeah, yes, yes.
yeah, but to me, it seems like every organization I get around that says we do DevOps does it a different way, which suggests to me it is an abstract. DevOps is an abstract concept. SRE is what Google did with that abstract concept. That's the way I look at it.
And the focus on reliability and resiliency and building that into your process.
No, philosophically, I think it extends DevOps.
Right, exactly.
Very
You
much.
do all those things, right, that DevOps and operations does. You just have a different focus and you build it into your processes that you build in these exactly what this is, right? You have Airbud, you have SLI, SLOs, but you're still, at the end of the day, you're a software engineer, right? You're just doing it with a load balancer, a VM, whatever, and you're building out dashboards and all these things to provide data and you're carrying the paper.
Yeah, it's that focus on reliability is really the key. That was the nice thing to get out of that book. It's like Nemzovic's chess, focus on the seventh rank or whatever. It's like strategically it makes all the sense in the world because everything ultimately manifests itself in reliability.
Yeah, we still have the mindset of, I want to automate everything, right? I want to partner with our development team and build out the pipelines to help build and package and test the things as fast as we can, but I'm also going to come over here and build out a pipeline to go do disruptive testing as well.
Right.
That you can go do your feature testing and everything still works, but now I'm going to go try to break it and then see what happens. And then let me introduce variables that I know are going to happen because I see it, right? And then I'm going to say, hey, now give me time to go work around that, right? So your customer doesn't see that and your air budget is protected at the end of the day.
Ultimately, right.
You apply any chaos engineering,
We did.
chaos monkey?
Yes, we apply the principles. Yeah. So I think I got.
If you've got a public facing site on the internet, if you're not doing it,
Yeah, then
somebody's doing it for you.
I'm gonna say we have it on here. Yeah, I got a Chaos Monkey here. But yeah, we implement a lot of different basic regression operating in the cloud. It'll be in an on production, let's spin up your service, start some small load against it, and it's running in, say, East and Central region. And we go take down Central and see if there's any impact on the front end, right, to latency, response time, whatever the measurements are. If there's no impact, then great. Then all the config is the same for this service as the other service. When I go to production, all the little switches and everything work as expected. That it should smoothly transition over. Or no, it didn't. Okay, is it because the service can't handle it, or it's relying on some backend service that is over here in this other region, right? Doing destructive testing helps to flush all that out. So, yeah, it's that reliability focus. It's built into everything. Cool.
Any other thoughts? And as we were just talking about with air budgeting, do you have the power to put on the brakes if needed? Or are you just the guy they come to blame when it's not happening? I've been in both spots. It sucks when you're the guy who they just, well, why does this thing keep crashing? Well, maybe we should test it occasionally. And the other end of it is if you've got a service that's performing really well, like say you've got 100% uptime for the month, do you have the ability to spend that budget. Potentially, if you're way exceeding your error budget, depending on what kind of service it is. I mean, I wouldn't call this for like, you know, an emergency response system or anything. Potentially, you need to introduce like chaos engineering or whatever. You need to be a bit more aggressive with your release cycle, whether that's, you know, introducing chaos, whether that's maybe we're spending too much time testing on some things that are completely irrelevant. It depends on the organization.
There can be game days also, right? Like you can have days where you completely play with everything. Like,
Yeah. I mean, it might be one of those deals where our error budget's good, we're ahead of schedule. Of course, there's usually a product manager. If they're ahead of schedule, there's, oh, let's go ahead and get a jump on the next quarter. Yeah, you might be able to take a break.
You can show that value, right? And say, hey, your team over there needs to go faster, right? Right. We have enough safety nets and processes in place to track. We can go faster now.
Well, you know, company I was at before, they, at least in theory, allocate 15% of every sprint to working bugs. That you could have a similar kind of practice so that it's not out of band, it's not extraordinary, but that there are always things that where we can introduce these kinds of testing into the normal cycle.
Right.
Unfortunately, the company I was at never did that.
Yeah. Yeah, you can almost say that, hey, like I said, you know, taking that to the next level is, hey, we're doing so well, your service is so great, you're as fast as you can go. Well, guess what? Maybe you need to take 20% of those resources and go put it into the other thing over there and see if we can bump it up too, right? By building these frameworks, you can show the value, right, of the entire workflow.
It's at my organization, we've got a team who generally company-wide we're 80% new feature work. We've got some teams that are 90, 95% new feature work because they're so stable. And then we got a couple of teams who aren't. They're 50. Yeah. So ideally, like I say, you can potentially shift resources around to help, a team that's doing well, maybe help get these guys
Reallocate. Ultimately, it's about resource allocation, right? So those numbers may be okay across all those teams, even though they're wildly different from team to team. But if it accurately reflects what they're doing, then that's the way it is, and you can manage according to your resource level.
Yeah.
Is it really worthwhile getting that team that's performing poorly to do better? Well, no, they only account for 0.5% of the total company's revenue. Why would we pour a lot of development dollars into that?
Yeah. It's another data point.
Yeah. So it becomes data to help you drive your data-driven organization.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts? Do you have living documentation of your processes and your code? My current company, when I started a little over a year ago, there was lots of documentation. Most of it was just plain wrong because it's how we did crap 5-6 years ago. So one of the things we got implemented, because we had like 3 new SREs start within a week of each other, and we were all coming across the same kinds of problems of, well, everybody who's been there, they know the right way to do it because they helped build the process, but the documentation hadn't been updated. We were able to get a quarter to just go through and blow away all the old junk that was no longer relevant and build or update the documentation, make it better. So we had another guy start 2 quarters later, and he's got up to speed in a couple of weeks. He didn't have all the stumbles that we had.
Onboarding is expensive.
Yeah, so one of the things that I found interesting, we had a SRE come out one time and talk to us, and one of the things that he said is a common practice as a new hire at Google be it developer or whatever, they'll hand them a laptop and say, okay, go figure out how whatever works, google.com maps, whatever. Give them a laptop. You're empowered to go talk to anybody, do whatever you need. In 2 weeks, we want you to give us a presentation of what you learned, right? And so they go on this journey, and they go to documentation. They go talk to the architect, staff, whoever, and they said they get to find where somebody that's been there, like I said, 2 or 3 years, that they don't learn something as part of the process, because you kind of tend to, I know that, right? But obviously things change over time. So you have these new people coming in, they give a presentation of their view of how the product works and the documentation, and then it's, I forgot, that's right, we did update that, and you go and update the documentation. So it's a way to kind of help ensure that it's kept up to date over time.
And also for the architects, or they also dig into, they kind of change something.
Yeah, and they forgot to go document it. Well, now you've got somebody that's willing to go document it because it's part of their onboarding process, right? So one of the things that we do to help, and I think you kind of hit on it, is the game day, or what we call Wheel of Misfortune, right? So we'll do it within our team to help kind of onboard and train a engineer to get ready for on-call. Or we'll do it with our development teams as well, and they love it, right? So I've done many of those with the development team, and oftentimes it'll take 2 or 3 different developers to go, no, that's the way it used to work 6 months ago. It's changed. And I've got the document open in edit mode going, okay, what now? Right? Ideally, you want that to be self-creating documentation, but that's really hard to achieve, right? So we have just basically a one-pager that says, hey, this is this service, here's its GitHub link, here's what the SLOs, here's everything you need to run, here's scripts, how to troubleshoot it, and all that kind of stuff. And then we have a game day, and we go break it. And we go, here, go fix it. And I'll turn that on the developers, too. I'm like, okay, fine. I'll be your smart hands. You tell me what you think you need to do. You need to go to load balancer, you need to go look in the log, you need to go do this. I'll do it for you, but you tell me. I'm the acting game master. I broke the service in an elegant way. Here's what the report is. I'm an incident manager. Incident manager saying, hey, 50% of customers are affected. What's going on? And they go, and they're like, we're looking at their one pager and we're going through it. It's a good way to ensure your documentation is kept up to date, and that ultimately the company and the teams have a good mature process to keep it up to date.
Definitely.
Do you guys do game days?
We haven't done formal game days really. That's something that we're looking to start doing. Like, there's a slide after this about postmortems. Trying to get more into everybody trading postmortems and figuring out, okay, is this useful? Did we learn something here?
Right.
Did we take away anything that changed the process, or did we just kick the can right down the road?
And let some other poor schmuck down the road have to deal with it again. Yeah. Game days can be fun. Can be nerve-wracking, but they can be fun.
Rather that than when it's really happening and you're like, what do I do? Any other thoughts on documentation? And that's basically our last point here. Do you have blameless postmortems? My current organization, definitely. Most of the ones I've worked at in the past, varying levels. Sometimes at the least a team is getting blamed, whether or not it was right to blame them because it was their thing that broke. Okay, well, their thing broke today, but it could be yours tomorrow, man. How do we make it better, period? Is there a reason that it broke? What's the reason? Okay, that broke. What did that cause around it? Another great thing is if you can find somebody to share one with you when you're like in an interview process, just to kind of get a grasp of how they do it. Are they really blameless? Are they really doing an effective post-mortem over an incident? Or are they just saying, yeah, this thing's up, are they just, giving it a quick 5 minutes and kicking it down the road and, okay, maybe this thing got a little better, but the next time something bigger happens, like, okay, yeah, I just deleted logs versus, I put in log rotate and I made sure that it was actually rotating. That kind of thing.
So we actually built an internal tool, a tool called ReHub, so Reliability Engineering Hub. So we built a tool basically to go and interact with our ServiceNow backend enterprise system, track an incident, and that allows you to put in when did the incident start, when did it stop, what are the action items, and you can use that to create tracker stories or Jira stories or whatever, and come back and follow it up, and all that is captured into one ticket, and then from that we use that to feed into metrics like mean time to detect, mean time to resolve, all those other kind of metrics as well. And you can use, I'm sure OpsGenie and BigRoms and all those have some parts of that. But at the end of the day, is it truly blameless, right? It's not like I said, hey, that guy over there or that team over there caused us to have problems. Like I said, it's going to be you tomorrow, right? You never know. So as much as you can build that culture of collaborative effort, right? And hey, we're all human. We had a problem. Amazon had a problem. Google had a problem. Here's what we're going to do to mitigate around it next time. That's what's, I think, the most mature collaborative effort at the end of the day.
Do you do this for all 7-1 incidents? Or
Definitely all step one.
Definitely.
A lot of times for step 2s and 3s as well, right? Some little data issue. Everything's an opportunity, right? Kind of hitting on that chaos monkey mentality, right? Of, hey, I found a problem. Now I get to go solve it, right? Now I can put on my engineering hat, right? And go figure out how do I prevent this from happening again, and then go find other problems and other things to fix on top of that, right? You're kind of given that space, right? And you're given that time to go, yeah, I'm going to go do a blameless postmortem. There's some data issue that caused this and did this. Okay, how can we improve that workflow and make sure that this doesn't cause us to spend an hour or 2 hours down the road, and I can get that time back to go do something else.
And if it's something that might be somewhat common, where else might I see this kind of issue, and are we dealing with it there? That can be the, oh, it's already dealt with this way over here, we can apply the same solution here, or I got a solution here, I need to make sure everybody with a similar problem set is ready to deal with it the same way. And remember, when you're interviewing with an organization, it's not just how do you fit, it's how do they fit with you. The Joel test was great for me when I was first doing software dev to help me understand, okay, these guys know what they're doing. They're not just saying agile because it's the hot buzzword. They actually understand the process. They know they either need to set a deadline and whatever's ready goes, or have the feature set and when it's done then we go, and not before, and not kick it out the door with a bunch of hell to follow directly behind it. Hopefully something like this will help us all find what fits us best. And that's it for this. If anybody's got any thoughts of questions, this is meant to be mainly a yes and no question type set. That's how the Joel test works. It's either yes, you have source control, no you don't. Yes, you have agile processes, no you don't. Yes, you release every day, no you don't. So ideally the base question set should be yes and no, and then it helps build the conversation, all the follow-up questions like I had up there.
I think I'm gonna stop recording then.